So recently I've been reviewing a lot of popular cooking YouTubers' ramen recipes, and unsurprisingly, a lot of people are trying to make tonkotsu ramen. And you know, if tonkotsu is tasty, it's probably still by far the most popular style of ramen outside of Japan. But there's one thing that I noticed with all of these recipes. They all seem to cook the soup for a very, very long time.
And now it's time to let this guy cook for 12 hours. Yes.
Add a lid and let it go for 12 hours.
Now is when we let this go overnight for 12 hours.
So it's true that a lot of restaurants do cook their tonkotsu soups for a very long time. But for a lot of home cooks out there, 12 hours of cooking is kind of impractical. You got other stuff we gotta do. And honestly, it's not really even that necessary to make a pretty decent tonkotsu ramen if you know a few tricks, which I'm gonna show you today. So this is a quick way to do a real tonkotsu ramen at home. So I started this batch of tonkotsu by soaking my pork bones for a few hours. I know I said this is a quick recipe, but I was talking more active cook time, and soaking really isn't technically cooking, is it? Anyways, what soaking does is draw out all that red stuff, the myoglobin, which would discolor your soup eventually, so it's good to get it out. For the best results, you can actually soak this overnight in the fridge, but I just did a few hours and it's still fine. After soaking, I dumped the water and then rinsed the bones. These bones I bought were like a mixed bag of pork bones. There's some femurs in here, some hip bones, this thing, whatever this is. And there's actually still a lot of fat and meat stuck to these bones, so I don't think I'm gonna add any more extra fat into this batch. Once I rinsed all my bones, I put them into a pot for a pre-boil. The pre-boil will help to draw out any more impurities and scum that would affect the color and flavor of the final soup. Tonkotsu can get pretty funky if you don't do these first two steps, so I think it's well worth the time to do it. After a few minutes, some scum should start floating up to the top, and actually you want to wait and not skim it off yet. Wait till it looks something like this. This will make it a lot easier to skim off. You'll also want to stir the bottom of the pot to get the bones stuck at the bottom to release their scum too, and then you just want to repeat this, stirring and skimming and stirring and skimming until there's no more brown scum at the top. It's just like white scum. If it's just white scum, that's fine and we can move on to the next step. So once you're done with that, you can dump your water and then rinse your bones. Use your fingers or a brush to knock off any brown clumps of gunk that are stuck to the bones and meat. Then add your clean bones into a pressure cooker and then cover with water. I had about 2 kilograms of bones and added about 3.5 liters of water. It really doesn't matter too much as long as it's covered by about an inch or so. Then cover and pressure cook on high for 1 hour. When it comes to tonkotsu ramen, there's basically 2 main reasons why people boil it for so long. The first being you want to extract the flavor and the umami from the pork bones, and that does take a while, usually 6 to 8 hours minimum to get these things extracted from pork bones. The second reason is to emulsify the fat and gelatin into the soup to make it that creamy consistency that we all know. The thing is, we don't have to do these 2 things at the same time. We can quickly extract the flavor first with a pressure cooker and then emulsify it later. So after an hour of pressure cooking, turn off the heat and then let it naturally release. And once you're able to open the pressure cooker, open it up and add 1 more liter of water in and then your choice of aromatics. For this batch, I added half an onion, about a handful of garlic cloves, and some cabbage. You can choose whatever aromatics you think will taste good, but you want to make sure you don't add too much aromatics. See, the aromatics are there for the aromatics, not so much for the flavor. The flavor is the pork. The aromatics are there to accent and support the pork, and also to cut down any stinky porky smells that might have still been in there. So once you got your aromatics in, boil it uncovered for 1 hour, making sure to stir it periodically to make sure it's not burning at the bottom. This will emulsify your soup with the broken down fat and gelatin which you extracted from the pressure cooking. Boiling uncovered, at least for me when making tonkotsu, also helps to get rid of any of that extra pork funk that could have stuck around after pressure cooking. Sometimes that comes out and it's not really nice. It's nice to get rid of that, so boiling uncovered also helps with that too. After 1 hour of boiling, the consistency looked pretty good to me, so I cut it there, but if you want to go a little bit longer, you can do so. In fact, you can boil it as long as you like, but I would recommend putting the aromatics in only at the last hour of boiling. After that, I strained out my soup. Now this may seem a little thin to you, but we'll take care of that right before we serve this. So now let's move on to the tare. So you can make this tare while the soup is cooking. It's really quick and easy. I wanted to do a tonkotsu shoyu. So this is a simple shoyu tare based off a ramen rotas video, another ramen YouTuber in Japan. I'll link up his video in the description below. I got 150 milliliters of water into a pot, then added 125 milliliters of koikuchi shoyu, or regular standard Japanese soy sauce, 25 milliliters of sake, 15 milliliters of mirin, and this is optional, but I also added 1 gram of instant shrimp dashi powder, and also 9 grams of crystallized umami extract. I turned on the heat, and then right before it began to simmer, I turned off the heat and stirred in 18 grams of Hawaiian sea salt. And that's it, super simple shoyu tare. For the aroma oil for this bowl, I'm just going to use some lard. So I'm rendering out my own lard here, but you actually don't have to do this. If you can get some good quality lard from a butcher or from the store, feel free to use that instead, because this is a pain in the butt to do. So yeah, buy your lard if you can buy it. So now your tonkotsu soup is pretty much done. All that's left is to prep the toppings and put it all together. So I cut up some green onion, some rehydrated woody or fungus, and also cut up some chashu that I had made earlier. I have a recipe for this in the description below. I'm using some homemade noodles for this bowl, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to. But if you want to make your own noodles, I'll link up my buddy Mike's book. He has some great recipes in there and I use them all the time. So I'm actually putting this all together a couple days after I made the soup. So this is what my soup looked like after it was chilled. Nice jello-y consistency. This is actually really nice. Sometimes I go too thick with tonkotsu. This is what it should look like. I got my soup into a pot and heated it up. And this is where we're going to fix any lack of creaminess that we might have had with the soup. We're going to hit this with an immersion blender and then blend this. And then this is going to emulsify anything that the boiling didn't catch. Any fat or gelatin that wasn't emulsified prior is going to get emulsified right now. And this is going to give you that creamy tonkotsu soup that you want. So when my soup was almost boiling, I added my noodles to a pot of boiling water and cooked them for 1 minute. And while my noodles were cooking, I added 20 milliliters of our shoyu tare and 10 milliliters of lard that I had rendered out. And then as soon as the soup came to a boil, I poured that into my bowl, strained out the noodles, and then added them in. And then topped that with the chashu that I made earlier, menma, kikurage, and green onions. And that is my bowl of quick shoyu tonkotsu ramen. So this bowl of tonkotsu was actually really tasty. And I guess with that much MSG, how can it not be tasty? But it actually was really good. I mean, when my kid was eating it, he did like the chef's kiss motion like 5 times, so he must have liked it. And the best part, it didn't take 12 hours to make. I think total active cook time for the soup was about 3 to 4 hours if you exclude the chashu. So this was a tonkotsu shoyu ramen because personally I like the taste of shoyu in tonkotsu, but you may have noticed it's not pure white, it's kind of like a nice caramel brown color. In the West, we sometimes go overboard with the idea that tonkotsu needs to be this pure white milky color, but in Japan this just isn't the case, and you'll often see a lot of brown shoyu tonkotsu ramens being served, especially in Kyushu. Tonkotsu has more to do with the flavor of the pork bones and less to do with the color, at least in Japan. But anyways, tonkotsu is probably still my weakest style of ramen. Still got a lot of work to do here, but I think this one turned out pretty good. So if you want to try tonkotsu ramen out, but you were always intimidated by the 12-hour cook time, give this one a shot. I mean, it turned out pretty good, honestly. I think you might like it. So during my hiatus, I did a lot of thinking of what I wanted to do with ramen or with this channel, and I decided that I'm just gonna have fun making things I'm interested in making from here on out and learning more about things that I want to learn about. I somehow got lost in this idea that because I have this channel and so many of you are watching now, I mean, I live on an island with around 70,000 people and there's like, 200,000 people that are subscribed to the channel. It's bananas. But anyways, I somehow got it into my head that because I have this channel and so many of you are watching, I should be putting up perfect recipes. But really, I said it a lot before, I'm not a professional chef. I'm just like a normal guy that enjoys trying to figure out how to make ramen, and I'm still learning myself, so there's no reason my ramen should be perfect. But I was putting all this pressure on myself, and to be honest, it was kind of robbing me of the joy of this whole journey that I had when I first started. The fact that my ramen isn't perfect is actually a good thing. It means that this story isn't done yet, and I'm gonna get to continue learning and enjoy learning more and more things and sharing what I learned with all of you. So really, thank you really everybody for all your support. When I said I was taking a break, I got so many messages from people saying such nice things, and if you're watching this, really thanks for sticking around. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.